I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, June the 12th, brought to you in part by Zactran. Bovine respiratory disease steals pounds. Zactran pounds back. Be sure to observe your 35-day withdrawal period after treatment. For more information, go to Zactran.com or visit with your Bangor Ingelheim representative. We've got some results from the crisis as far as its impact on cattle and beef business here, and it should help with all the litigation and everything that's going on. We've got suits that's been filed against your big four packers. We've got investigations going on, and this should really help with any of those guys that need some evidence of the gouging that went on, the collusion that went on and the like. But some of them are pretty eye-opening, and I'll share a little bit with you here late in the week. Your retail beef price for May hit an all-time high. For the month, retail beef price, all your products included there on your retail beef, all-time record high of $7.04 a pound. That's collectively for all the cuts, retail. That is up. That's up 13.2% compared to April, which was elevated already, but up 19.3% from the same time a year ago. So that's hurting beef demand because the sticker shock, and a lot of your consumers couldn't afford it anymore. So it's hurting beef demand. That's what your packers gave for a gift during the COVID crisis. Okay, now let's look at beef in relation to its protein competitors there. Okay, so beef, a meal of beef compared to a comparable meal for pork. Your beef, 187% in price. Compared to the 5-year average compared to pork is usually about 160. So it's always going to be some higher, but they cranked it up to where it's nearly twice. So now let's look in relation to poultry, which poultry's foul, and we all know that, and you only eat it when you absolutely have to, or you know an old woman that can make you some fried chicken in an old-time Dutch oven. But for the most part, you try to steer clear of that stuff. But beef in relation to poultry, 371% here recently as we went through the gouging and the COVID crisis there. So 371%, a comparable beef meal in price compared to poultry. It normally runs about 320%. Now, you look at pork and poultry related against each other in their relationship, it remained very consistent with what it normally is through the COVID crisis. And I'll grant you, all your grocery items were some higher. A lot of that had to do with logistics of getting it where it needed to be, but the extremes, gouging and extreme margins that the packers took, it just elevated it so much higher than any other product. And you can imagine if your big four packers had been making toilet paper, you know, they would have had a roll of toilet paper about $20 if it had been up to them. But let's look at some more information here with crisis results. And I'm always telling you guys, you know, we want more cash trade. We want this, we want that. We want a competitive market. But at the end of the day, bottom line is your cattle people need to be getting a fair percentage of your retail beef price, and just unable to get that. So we hit another all-time record high here of late of your fed cattle receiving the absolute smallest share of the retail beef dollar than it's ever seen in history. Another all-time record high. We saw it an all-time record for the year in 2018. We blew it away in 2019 with the results of the fire in Holcomb, Kansas. And now here of late, following the COVID crisis here, we've seen another all-time record high for fed cattle receiving the smallest percentage of the retail beef dollar, and that percentage is 14%. Your fed finished cattle represent 14% of the retail beef dollar whenever you figure it out to the different cuts and what they're having to pay. And so who's keeping that other 86%? Yeah, guess who? for the most part, it's all your packers there. So there's mountains of this stuff to go with, but this is just some of the best, the cream that I pulled off the top there to help you guys, when you're filing your suits, when you're making your opening remarks. Some of you, you investigators, if you're having trouble finding things, maybe you back up and start trying to look at the trees and not be overcome by the forest there. But we've got to get something done, guys. We've got enough arms out there reaching and trying to do something, and we've got to do it right now while this is fresh on our minds and everybody's still upset about it. Let's look at the board on Thursday. June live cattle futures up 22% at 96.82. August down a nickel at 96.45. And that's starting to make more and more sense that you're right now, your current spot fat cattle should be worth more than what they are in August. We're going into a down market, guys. We've got heavy supplies that were going to be there whether or not we had the COVID or not. And then with the COVID and backed up and the weights are heavy, it's not looking great for going into this dog days of summer. But you're going out front on your live cattle contracts, down 35 cents to up a nickel. So we really didn't see a whole lot of volatility in your live cattle contracts on Thursday. August feeder cattle down 50 cents at 132.17. September down 90, 133 and a quarter. You're going out from there, and your feeder cattle contracts were down 37 cents to down 80 cents. Had more fat cattle trade, not as heavy as we've seen the last couple of weeks, but still significant negotiated cash trade. Through Wednesday, we had already sold 45,600 head. And then we had significant trade on Thursday. And whether we'll have any more on Friday kind of remains to be seen, and has a lot to do with what your board does on Friday morning early. But Iowa confirmed sales on Thursday, 4,600 head. Live sales from 102 to 104. Dress sales from 162 to 165. Nebraska, about 4,000 head confirmed. All the live sales reported at 105. Dress sales from 162 to 165. You might not think that dress price is that bad, but your weighted average last week at this point on your dress to price was 179. So you figure that 165 at the top end, that's 14 bucks lower dressed, guys. Kansas, 10,500 head there. All live sales quoted from 103 to 107, but largely 103 to 104, and that was only $1 to $2 lower live there in the Southern Plains. Texas, 3,900 head there, mostly 104 with an end up to 105. And that's pretty much your established fat cattle market there late in the week, and that's where the bulk of your supplies are going to come from, and those weighted averages won't vary that much from the prices that I just gave you. Box beef cutout values lower again, but not as much. Really starting to kind of find some footing there with choice cuts at 235.56. Like I said, we were just under 210 when we first started seeing that thing take off. At the beginning of the pandemic there, but 235.56 down just 50 cents. And now we're seeing kind of normal changes here after everything, the smoke's cleared. Your select cuts 219.88 down 296. We're seeing continued pretty heavy movement of volume nearby for immediate delivery, and still pretty good there on Thursday at 181 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index. Actually, I want to talk about slaughter first. I'm sorry. Talk about your slaughter here late in the week. We can start to get a handle on that. Your slaughter through Thursday, 467,000. That's 10,000 more than last week, and just 20,000 less than the same week a year ago when everything was normal. So, guys, for all intensive purposes, we've got our slaughter back. So we ought to start planing out now a little bit. Your actual slaughter information coming back for the week ending May the 30th had our dressed steer weights at 891 pounds, which is 3 pounds less than the previous report, but still 44 pounds heavier than the 5-year average. So that gives you an idea how far backed up we are right now. Now let's talk about feeder cattle. Real-time index on DB auction late in the day on Thursday at 128.97, down 28 cents. Some of your bigger sales and didn't see a whole lot of change in them, starting to kind of level out a little bit. But winter livestock, Pratt, Kansas, 3,200 head there. Feeder steers were uneven, from $2 lower to $2 higher. Some of the buyers that were there had specific orders for specific weights, and it showed in there. But for the most part, your steers going right on feed, just uneven, just a couple bucks on either side of steady. Feeder heifers steady to $5 lower. Mitchell livestock, Mitchell, South Dakota. Look at these loads of steers, and a lot of them carrying quite a bit of weight to them. And I always tell you guys that Mitchell sells those near beer, heavily backgrounded steers better than anyone else. But I want to pull out a stick out load right here on some of the lightest ones, at least in this little pot that I pulled. 71 head, 786 pound steers, bring $142 in Mitchell, South Dakota. My buddy Jason Allen, he's the co-owner of Lamoni Livestock there in Lamoni, Iowa, and he told me about a couple of loads of steers from Stanley Bay, and those cattle had 2 loads of steers there. They weighed 817 and 821 right there in south central Iowa, bring 137 and a quarter and 137.50. So very impressive quotes there. Top quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday come out of Billings Livestock Commission in Billings, Montana. Part load, 50 head, 716 head pound steers bring 147.50. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.